The horse that no one could tame, until this girl whispered in his ear. The aggressive horse wouldn't let anyone near him, much less ride him. Then, a girl stepped forward and whispered something in his ear, and he became calm as a lamb. Just what did she say to him? Find out in this extraordinary story that's shaking the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that defy belief. Carla's gaze fixed on the massive black stallion as it paced restlessly in the wooden pen. That horse, there's something different about him, she murmured, barely able to tear her eyes away from his powerful frame. The annual Westridge Horse Fair had brought families, farmers, and riders from every corner of Montana to this small town. People gathered to show, trade, and admire the best horses in the county. But amid the lively chatter and laughter, Carla's attention was drawn to the stallion, Ray, a creature as majestic as he was untamable. Beside her stood her father, Tom, a seasoned horse trainer himself, who watched Carla's reaction with a mixture of pride and trepidation. At only 16, Carla was already known in Westridge for her almost mystical connection with horses. Her skill wasn't just a product of practice, she seemed to have a natural gift, one she'd shown countless times with the family mare, Duchess. But Ray was something else entirely. Tom broke the silence, glancing at her knowingly. Ramiro Soto plans to sell him, you know, he said, nodding toward the horse's handler. Ramiro, a rugged old rancher with sun-beaten skin, was tugging at Ray's reins with an exasperated look, his patience hanging by a thread. Ramiro turned to the crowd, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Anyone brave enough to handle this devil? He's yours for the right price, he called, his voice a mix of humor and resignation. Ray was notorious for his aggression, even the most skilled ranchers had failed to tame him. But Carla couldn't take her eyes off him. She saw something in the way Ray tossed his head and pawed the ground, an energy that wasn't purely defiant. It was as if he were waiting for someone who understood his wild spirit. With a sigh, Tom caught the spark in Carla's eyes. She had already taken a step forward. "Dad, I want to try," she said, her voice steady and calm. Tom steadied her face, seeing that familiar determination. He'd watched her tackle challenges like this before, but this time felt different. Ray wasn't just any horse, he was a force of nature. "You're sure about this?" Tom asked, though he knew her answer. Carla gave a single, resolute nod. "Yes, Dad. I know I can do it." She saw his concern but felt a thrill of purpose surge within her. Tom took a step back, his expression a mix of pride and worry. "Then go on, Carla. Show them what you can do." The crowd murmured as Carla made her way toward Ramiro and the horse. Known in town as the girl with the horse's heart, Carla had both fans and skeptics. Some admired her talent, others thought she was just a naive girl playing trainer. "Mr. Soto," Carla addressed Ramiro with steady respect. "I'd like a chance to work with him." Ramiro's eyes swept over her, disbelief evident. "You? This isn't a pony for lessons, young lady. He's trouble." Carla met his gaze, unwavering. "I know what I'm doing. Just give me one chance." Ramiro hesitated, torn between disbelief and curiosity. Finally, with a grunt, he thrust the reins into her hands. "All right, let's see what you're made of." Stepping into the corral, Carla moved with a calm that defied her age. Ray pawed at the ground, his muscles taut with restrained fury, his gaze challenging anyone who dared approach. But Carla didn't flinch. Rather than approaching him directly, Carla stood just close enough to allow him to sense her presence, her breathing steady and rhythmic. She understood that taming a horse like Ray wasn't about dominance, it was about respect. The crowd watched in complete silence, eyes wide with a mix of fascination and disbelief. Ray tossed his head, his nostrils flaring as he assessed this strange girl who dared to face him without fear. Carla held her hand out, palm open, and waited. She didn't touch him but allowed him to choose, an invitation instead of a command. The stallion snorted, stepping back, then leaned forward to sniff her hand. He jerked his head, testing her resolve, but Carla remained unfazed, her focus unwavering. With a slow, graceful motion, she reached out and brushed her hand over his powerful neck. The audience murmured, their voices a blend of wonder and concern. What was she doing? No one used such a gentle approach with a beast like Ray. Where other trainers would have resorted to force or brash tactics, Carla offered only patience and trust. "Easy, boy," she whispered, her voice so soft it was barely audible. But Ray heard. His shoulders relaxed slightly, his gaze softening. Carla moved in closer, her touch gentle but firm, as though she were weaving an invisible thread between them. To the crowd's astonishment, Carla climbed onto Ray's back without a saddle, relying on nothing but the bond she'd created in those few precious minutes. The tension in the air was electric, as if everyone were holding their breath. "This girl's crazy," someone whispered. Ignoring the murmurs, Carla sat tall, her body in perfect harmony with Ray's powerful frame. For a moment, the stallion remained motionless, almost as if he were contemplating her audacity. Then, without warning, Ray reared up, his front legs slicing through the air as he shook his head with unbridled fury. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and a few women covered their mouths, horrified. But Carla didn't flinch. She held on, her hands firmly grasping his mane, her body moving fluidly with his every thrash. It was as though she were dancing with his rage, speaking to a part of him no one else had ever reached. "Calm, Ray, calm," Carla murmured, her voice laced with understanding rather than control. It was as if she weren't speaking to his body but to his spirit, the wounded part of him that drove his fury. The struggle continued, seconds feeling like hours as Ray bucked and twisted. But gradually, his fierce energy began to ebb. His muscles relaxed, and his breaths grew steadier. To everyone's disbelief, Ray finally lowered his head and took a gentle step forward, allowing Carla to guide him with a grace that left the crowd stunned. The silence that followed was thick with awe. The townspeople stared, hardly daring to believe what they had witnessed. Ray, the infamous stallion, wild and untamable, was now calmly walking under the guidance of a girl who hadn't even broken a sweat. As Carla dismounted, the crowd burst into applause. But she remained serene, her eyes filled not with triumph, but with understanding. For her, this wasn't a victory over Ray but a moment of connection. She had found the true Ray, buried beneath his armor of fear and mistrust. As Carla stepped off the train in Durango, she felt a surge of anticipation as the fresh mountain air filled her lungs. Eduardo Martinez, the esteemed trainer she'd heard so much about, was waiting with a welcoming smile. With his tall frame, silvered hair, and the calm confidence of a seasoned horseman, he exuded a sense of peace and wisdom that instantly put Carla at ease. "Welcome to Durango, Carla," he greeted warmly, offering a firm handshake. "I'm glad you accepted my invitation. You're here not just to refine your skills, but to challenge yourself, and I'm honored to help guide you." As they rode to Eduardo's sprawling ranch, Carla marveled at the expansive fields and the distant peaks that seemed to touch the sky. Horses roamed freely on the property, their movements graceful yet unrestrained, as if they knew they were respected here. This was more than just a training ground, it was a sanctuary, a place where the bond between horse and human was sacred. Eduardo gave Carla a tour of the ranch, sharing stories of the horses in his care and the philosophy he'd developed over decades. "Every horse has its own spirit, its own language," he explained. "To truly connect with them, you must meet them on their terms. Patience, respect, and understanding are at the core of everything we do here." Carla listened intently, absorbing each word. Over the following days, she worked from dawn until dusk, learning and unlearning, allowing herself to be shaped by Eduardo's teachings. She observed how he approached each horse differently, adapting his methods to suit their unique personalities. For Carla, who had always relied on instinct, this nuanced approach was a revelation. Eduardo taught her to recognize the subtlest cues, a flick of an ear, the slightest shift in posture, that revealed the horse's feelings. One morning, Eduardo introduced Carla to Luna, a gentle but timid mare who'd been rescued from a difficult past. Her trust in humans was fragile, and she was known to shy away from any sudden movement. "She's sensitive, just like Ray was," Eduardo said. To work with her, you'll need to let go of any expectations and just be with her. Carla took a deep breath and approached Luna with the same patience she'd shown with Ray, allowing Luna to close the distance between them in her own time. At first, Luna was hesitant, stepping back with wary eyes. But Carla didn't rush her. She stood quietly, breathing slowly, letting Luna sense her presence and decide when to approach. Gradually, Luna lowered her head, and Carla gently placed her hand on the mare's neck, feeling the warmth of the creature beneath her palm. A bond was forming, one built on trust, not force. Under Eduardo's guidance, Carla spent hours with Luna, working not just on technique but on the deeper, almost meditative state of being that allowed a horse to feel safe. She learned how to let go of her own thoughts and fears, creating a calmness that Luna could mirror. Over time, Luna's tentative steps grew bolder, her nervousness subsiding as Carla's quiet patience wrapped around her like a protective shield. As days turned into weeks, Carla's growth was profound. She practiced every technique Eduardo taught her, perfecting her skills and learning to think like the horses she loved. When Eduardo deemed her ready, he arranged for her to demonstrate what she had learned in front of a small gathering of fellow trainers and horse enthusiasts. Carla's heart pounded with nerves, but she focused on Luna, the mare's steady presence reminding her of why she was there. With the audience watching closely, Carla began her demonstration, moving alongside Luna with graceful precision. Each step, each movement was a silent conversation between girl and horse, as if they were connected by an invisible thread of trust and mutual respect. The audience watched in awe as Luna, once fearful and hesitant, trotted confidently by Carla's side. The bond they shared was unmistakable, a testament to Carla's dedication and Eduardo's teachings. As she finished, the crowd erupted in applause, but Carla barely noticed. Her focus was solely on Luna, whose calm eyes seemed to reflect the understanding they now shared. Eduardo approached her, his smile filled with pride. "You've learned well, Carla," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But remember, this journey never ends. There's always more to learn, more to understand. And that's the beauty of it." When the time came for Carla to return to Westridge, Eduardo offered a final piece of advice. "Don't worry about proving yourself to others. Do what's right by the horses, and everything else will follow. Those who doubt you will come around in time, and those who don't, well, their opinions matter little in the grand scheme of things." With those words echoing in her mind, Carla returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. In Westridge, she found that her story had continued to circulate, drawing both admirers and skeptics. People were eager to see how she would respond to the scrutiny, but Carla felt no need to prove herself to anyone. Her confidence came from within, from the profound experiences she'd had at Eduardo's ranch. When she arrived back at the family ranch, Tom was waiting, his face beaming with pride and relief. He hugged her tightly. "Welcome home, Carla. I knew you'd come back stronger." Carla smiled, glancing over at Ray, who stood nearby as if sensing her return. Approaching the black stallion, she placed her hand on his neck, feeling the same warmth and familiarity that had sparked her journey. Ray nuzzled her gently, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared. As Carla resumed her work, she embraced Eduardo's teachings, sharing her knowledge with others in the community who came to learn from her. Her journey had transformed her, grounding her in the belief that the connection between horse and human was not just a skill to be showcased, but a gift to be nurtured. Over time, even her harshest critics began to recognize her dedication. Dr. Valverde, who had once published doubts about her methods, reached out, expressing a newfound respect for her work. "You've proven yourself beyond words, Carla," he wrote. "Your journey speaks for itself, and it's clear that your commitment to horses is genuine and profound." Carla's journey became a story of resilience, patience, and respect, inspiring others to look beyond what they thought they knew about horses. Her path wasn't just about training but about deep, enduring relationships with the animals she cherished. Her story wasn't merely about taming a horse, it was about taming the doubts and fears within herself, growing through every challenge. As the seasons passed, Carla found herself increasingly at peace, content to let her work speak for itself. She knew her journey was far from over, but with every step, she felt a deeper alignment with her purpose. And so, Carla's legend grew, not just as the girl who whispered to horses, but as a young woman whose passion, patience, and dedication had inspired a community, crossed borders, and reminded the world of the quiet power of compassion. Her connection with Ray and the lessons from Eduardo became symbols of what true mastery looked like, not dominance, but harmony, not pride, but humility, not conquest, but love. Carla had discovered her calling, and no matter where life would take her next, she knew one thing for certain: she would always follow the silent, unbreakable bond that had led her here. As Carla stepped into the bustling research center alongside Dr. Leticia Morales, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The collaboration had already sparked conversations in academic circles and among professional trainers, but this was only the beginning. Dr. Morales, renowned for her groundbreaking work in animal behavior, wanted Carla to share her unique insights with trainers and scientists alike. Together, they aimed to build a framework for understanding the psychological needs of horses, challenging old paradigms and paving the way for a new, respectful approach to equine training. For months, Carla and Dr. Morales worked tirelessly, traveling to equestrian facilities and universities across the country. Carla would conduct demonstrations, using her gentle techniques to communicate with even the most nervous of horses. Observers, who once doubted the power of her methods, watched in awe as she connected with each animal, guiding them with patience and compassion. Meanwhile, Dr. Morales documented the behavioral responses, noting the decrease in stress indicators in the horses Carla worked with compared to those subjected to conventional training methods. As word spread, people began to reach out to Carla for guidance and advice. Animal welfare organizations and equestrian centers showed interest in adopting her techniques, and her methods were even featured in respected animal behavior journals. Her work became a bridge between traditional training and the science of empathy, a shift that had once seemed impossible. Back in Westridge, Carla's success hadn't gone unnoticed. The once skeptical townsfolk now proudly recounted her story, seeing her as a trailblazer from their own small community. The Westridge Fair, where her journey with Ray had begun, dedicated a section to ethical training, inspired by her example. Local schools invited Carla to speak about her journey, and young riders looked up to her as a role model. One late afternoon, Carla returned to Eduardo's ranch to visit her mentor and friend. The sun was setting over the mountains, casting a golden glow across the pastures as Eduardo greeted her with a familiar, warm smile. As they walked among the horses, Carla recounted her journey, of Dr. Morales' invitation, the long hours of research, the pressures, and the breakthroughs. Eduardo listened closely, pride shining in his eyes. "You're shaping the future, Carla," he said after a thoughtful pause. "It's a rare thing to see someone so young inspire such change, not just with words, but through action." Carla, deeply moved, looked out over the rolling hills, where the horses grazed freely. "I feel like I've found my place, Eduardo. The work, the studies, and seeing these changes, it's everything I dreamed of and more. I just want to keep proving that we don't need force, that there's always another way." Eduardo nodded, his eyes filled with the pride of a mentor who had seen his protege rise to the challenge. "You always had that gift, Carla. But now you've shown the world, and there's no going back." Just then, Ray trotted over from the pasture, his dark coat gleaming in the waning light. He nuzzled Carla's shoulder, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. She stroked his mane, remembering the moments of doubt and struggle that had ultimately led her here. As the years passed, Carla's dedication to ethical training reshaped the way horses were handled across the country. She continued her research alongside Dr. Morales, co-authoring papers that would become foundational texts in the field of animal welfare. She opened her own training facility in Westridge, where people came from near and far to learn her methods. The Carla Solis Center for Ethical Equine Training became a haven for horses that needed gentle handling, and a training ground for new generations of compassionate trainers. Her journey was far from over. With Eduardo's guidance, Dr. Morales' scientific validation, and the support of her community, Carla was no longer just a girl who whispered to horses. She had become a symbol of respect, empathy, and resilience, a reminder that with patience and understanding, even the wildest spirits could find peace. And as she stood at the gates of her own training center, watching the horses roam freely, Carla knew she had found her life's calling. She was ready to face every new challenge, not as a trainer, but as a guardian of the bond between humans and the creatures who trusted them. Her journey had shown her that the greatest strength was not in taming, but in understanding, a truth that would continue to guide her for the rest of her days.